I want you to close your eyes for a second. Just imagine ducking under the yellow crime scene tape with us.
Oh, it's quite the scene to visualize.
Right. Picture this. You are standing on the weather-beaten wooden boards of the Starlight Pier. It is the night of the city's massive annual summer festival.
The biggest night of the year, really.
Exactly. And the air around you is incredibly thick. It's this overwhelming, highly specific sensory cocktail.
It's that mix of the elements and the pyrotechnics.
Yeah, you've got this sharp, biting, almost metallic smell of sulfur hanging in the air from, thousands of fireworks.
Which is a very distinct, heavy scent.
It is, and right underneath that, you catch the deep, briny scent of salt and dark water from the sea slapping against the concrete pylons down below.
You'd hear that low rumble of the water, too.
Right, but cutting through all of that, there's the unmistakable, sweet, yeasty aroma of extremely expensive champagne, just flowing freely over in the VIP section.
It's completely designed to be a scene of absolute celebration. Untouchable luxury, really.
But right in the dead center of that cordoned-off VIP area, the celebration abruptly stops.
Just everything grinds to a halt.
Yeah. Lying there on the deck is Mr. Sato, the city's most beloved visionary architect, and, well, he is dead.
It's a really jarring psychological juxtaposition. You take the absolute pinnacle of the city's social calendar.
The ultimate party.
Exactly. A meticulously planned event meant to showcase architectural and cultural triumph, and in a fraction of a second, it is transformed into a homicide scene.
And today's deep dive is an exclusive look at what seems, on paper anyway, to be an utterly impossible crime.
It genuinely reads like a magic trick at first.
Oh, absolutely. And we've got our hands on a fascinating stack of sources today. We are opening up Case File 141 Redacted.
Which is just a massive dossier.
It's huge. I mean, our sources include raw ballistics, forensic metallurgy reports, frame-by-frame security footage analysis.
Acoustic data mapping, which is incredibly rare to see in this much detail.
Yeah, and even a highly distorted audio confession. Oh, and historical records regarding a decades-old urban legend that seems to have, physically manifested.
It's a very dense set of material.
Yes. So our mission today is highly specific. We are going to analyze this case strictly from the perspective of a crime scene investigator.
Which is the only way to tackle something this bizarre.
Right. We're going to look past the smoke, past the mirrors, and past the ghost stories, and we're going to deconstruct the hard physics.
The chemical forensics and the psychological evidence left behind. Because what looks on the surface like a supernatural assassination.
Like a literal ghost story come to life.
Yes, exactly. It was, in reality, a meticulously engineered physical event.
And as investigators, our job isn't to be awed by the magic trick, right?
No, our job is to walk backstage and find the wires. We have to break down exactly how this was physically done.
So let's unpack this, because as a proxy for you, the listener, the first thing I noticed in this case file is this glaring anomaly.
The silence.
The silence. The massive contradiction at the center of the crime scene. Mr. Sato died right during the grand finale of the fireworks display.
Which should have been deafening.
Right. By all laws of physics, crowd dynamics, and just common sense, that should have been the loudest, most chaotic, ear-splitting moment of the entire night.
You have industrial mortars detonating just a few hundred feet away.
Thousands of people cheering, festival music blaring from the Pier's PA system, and yet...
According to the case file,
Yeah.
every single witness in that VIP section experienced exactly 10 seconds of complete, absolute silence.
10 seconds. No wind, no ocean waves, no music, no explosions.
Just a total sensory void.
It defies everything we expect from an outdoor environment, let alone a violent event. I mean, murder scenes are chaotic.
You generate noise, panic, kinetic energy. You expect shouting, struggling.
Exactly. And when the sound suddenly snapped back into existence 10 seconds later, Sato was already dead on the floor.
It's chilling.
And not just dead, he was mysteriously covered in thousands of tiny glowing silver paper cranes.
Which, absolutely, were not there a moment before.
It reads like dark fantasy.
It does read that way. But, in forensics, we operate on a fundamental principle.
Which is?
When something presents itself as magic, it is almost always just highly advanced, unobserved physics.
Unobserved physics. I like that.
Yeah, so to understand the murder of Mr. Sato, we cannot start with the body. We first have to understand that impossible silence.
We have to deconstruct the physics of nothingness, which honestly sounded like a mass hallucination to me at first.
It's a very natural assumption to make.
Right. I mean, if 50 people tell you the world went mute during a fireworks show, you assume some kind of collective psychological shock.
But the case file proved it wasn't a hallucination.
No, it didn't. The forensic audio teams swept the pier, and they actually found the physical cause.
They found the hardware.
Hidden deep inside the massive fireworks launchers themselves, they discovered high-frequency ultrasonic emitters.
And these were not your standard concert speakers either.
Oh, no.
The acoustics report details that these emitters were precision engineered. They were specifically tuned to cancel out ambient noise within a very precise 50-meter radius.
So what the forensic team uncovered is basically a weaponized industrial-scale application of active noise cancellation, or ANC.
Precisely.
Now, hold on. If you're listening to this, you probably know ANC from your fancy over-ear headphones.
The consumer electronics.
Yeah, you flip a switch while you're on an airplane, and that low drone of the jet engine just sort of magically vanishes.
This makes flying much more tolerable.
Totally. But scaling that up to a 50-meter radius on an outdoor pier,
It's monumental.
how does a killer even begin to engineer that?
Well, it requires a staggering, almost terrifying understanding of acoustic engineering.
So break it down for us.
Okay, to appreciate the scale of what the killer achieved here, we have to look at the mechanics of ANC through a strictly physical lens.
Okay, let's put on our lab coats.
Sound isn't just noise. It is a mechanical wave. It is literally air molecules being compressed and pulled apart, traveling in peaks and troughs of pressure.
High pressure and low pressure.
Exactly. So to cancel a sound, you don't block it like you would the wall, you fight it.
You fight fire with fire, or in this case, sound with sound.
That's the perfect analogy. The system uses an array of microphones to listen to the incoming sound wave.
With fireworks.
Right. And a processor then instantly calculates the exact shape of that wave and emits an anti-wave.
An anti-wave.
Yes. This anti-wave is the exact mathematical inverse. So when the original sound wave hits a peak of high pressure, the anti-wave hits a trough of low pressure.
So they basically crash into each other and just sort of flatten out into nothing.
In a perfect two-dimensional textbook diagram, yes. That's called destructive interference.
Destructive interference.
Yeah. The two waves mathematically add up to zero, resulting in silence.
Okay, but you said textbook diagram.
Right, because in the real world, it's vastly more complicated.
Yeah.
You don't just flatten or destroy energy.
Because of the laws of physics.
Exactly. The laws of thermodynamics dictate that energy has to go somewhere. It cannot simply vanish.
Wait, really? So the sound isn't actually gone?
No, not at all. If you create a localized zone of destructive interference, which is the silence the VIPs experienced, you inevitably create zones of constructive interference just outside of that bubble.
Constructive interference, meaning it gets louder.
Yes. The sound waves are essentially redirected and amplified. So somewhere else on the beach, maybe 100 meters away, the fireworks would have suddenly sounded twice as loud.
Like a deafening sonic boom.
Exactly.
That is wild. I mean, the people down the beach must have thought a bomb went off.
They likely did.
Yeah.
But getting back to the VIP section.
Right, the 50-meter bubble. Doing that inside the closed, controlled plastic cup of a headphone right next to your ear is one thing.
It's a very controlled environment.
Yeah, but creating a 50-meter localized vacuum of sound in an unpredictable open-air environment.
It borders on the impossible. Really, think about the variables the killer's algorithm had to account for.
Like the weather.
Yes, you are dealing with unpredictable wind shear, which constantly alters the speed and direction of sound.
Because sound travels through the air, so if the air is moving, the sound gets pushed around.
Exactly. And you are dealing with the chaotic, highly irregular frequencies of ocean waves crashing against wooden pylons.
The random chatter of a crowd.
Right. And multiple overlapping multi-frequency pyrotechnic explosions happening at different altitudes.
It's not just a steady airplane engine hum, it's thousands of dynamic variables shifting every millisecond.
The computing processing power required to calculate the destructive interference for all those simultaneous chaotic frequencies in real time.
It must be insane.
It is. And then to project them over a 50-meter spherical area, it is astronomical.
And beyond the computing, think about the physics of the hardware itself.
The power source.
Yeah, the power needed to drive those ultrasonic emitters to produce anti-waves loud enough and fast enough to physically cancel out a grand finale fireworks display.
It would be immense. You'd need military-grade sonic projectors.
And you can't just set those up in 5 minutes.
No. You would need weeks, if not months, of site-specific acoustic calibration to map the sonic properties of that exact pier.
Okay, this is exactly where my inner investigator throws up a massive red flag.
I suspect I know where you're going with this.
Reading through the logistics of this, my jaw just dropped. Because how does someone smuggle military-grade sonic equipment, massive commercial power supplies, and highly fragile, high-tech emitters into the launch tubes of a public festival?
Without anyone noticing.
Right, without the pyrotechnics team noticing. Pyrotechnicians are incredibly precise.
They measure explosive loads down to the gram.
Exactly. You can't just sneak an entire server rack's worth of gear into a parade float without someone questioning the extra weight or the weird wiring.
That is precisely the friction point a seasoned forensic investigator would look for.
It has to be.
The physical logistics of the crime scene point directly toward the psychological profile and identity of the killer.
Because you can't be an outsider to pull this off.
No. You do not just wander onto a heavily guarded, politically sensitive pier and start casually wiring experimental ultrasonic emitters into explosive mortars.
It's just not happening.
The evidence practically screams that the killer had intimate, unfettered, and unquestioned access to the festival's infrastructure.
So we're talking about a major inside job.
Unquestionably. As an investigator profiling this, you're looking for someone deeply involved in the structural design of the pier itself.
Or maybe the electrical supply chain for the city.
Yes. Or perhaps someone sitting at the very top of the festival's organizing committee.
Someone with the blueprints.
They needed unrestricted access to those blueprints. They needed extensive unsupervised time on the site.
And most importantly, they needed the authority to tell security guards and technicians to just look the other way.
Exactly. Don't look in that box. Or, I'm running a special diagnostic.
It's chilling when you put it like that. They didn't just hijack an event. They practically built the festival around the murder.
They did. And what's truly fascinating from an investigative standpoint is the tactical application of this silence.
What do you mean?
Well, it wasn't just a theatrical backdrop designed to make a splash in the morning papers. It was a highly calculated, necessary weapon.
Because it stopped Sato from screaming for help.
That is the obvious benefit, yes.
Yeah.
But fundamentally, it served to perfectly medically disorient the witnesses.
Oh, because of how our brains work.
Right. Human beings are deeply reliant on auditory cues to orient themselves in physical space.
Especially at night, right, when you can't see as much.
Exactly. When visual information is limited, your ears are your radar. If you remove all sound suddenly and completely, you induce a state of cognitive paralysis.
Cognitive paralysis.
Yes. The brain experiences a massive sensory conflict. People freeze.
Man, if you've ever worn noise-canceling headphones on a flight and had that weird, pressurized, almost dizzy feeling in your ears.
It can be quite nauseating for some.
Imagine that feeling hitting your entire body at once, completely unprompted, while you're standing in a crowd. I mean, I'd freeze too.
You've essentially created a literal buffer zone of confusion. No one in that VIP section knows what to do because their primary threat detection sensory input just categorically failed.
Their alarm system was shut off.
Exactly.
Okay, but here is where I hit a wall when I was reading the file.
What's that?
Cognitive paralysis from silence only buys you a few seconds. The human brain is adaptable.
It is very quick to recalibrate.
Right. So after 3 or 4 seconds of silence, the panic sets in. People start looking around. Their heads are on swivels.
They start searching for the source of the anomaly.
And the VIP section is not pitch black. It is flooded with light from the fireworks above.
Even without sound, the visual spectacle is ongoing.
So how do you physically walk up to a famous man in the center of a crowd, assassinate him, and leave without someone's eyes adjusting and spotting you?
A phenomenal question. And it leads us directly to the secondary layer of the killer's sensory trap.
The secondary layer.
Yes. Auditory disorientation alone wasn't enough. The forensics reveal that while the killer was manipulating what the witnesses heard, they were simultaneously and perfectly manipulating what they saw.
Which takes us to the security footage analysis in the dossier. And honestly, this is the clue that really messes with your head.
It's a visual paradox.
The file calls it the reverse shadow.
The reverse shadow, yeah.
During those 10 seconds of dead silence, a camera caught a visual impossibility. The primary light source at that exact moment was the grand finale fireworks exploding in the sky.
Which were directly behind Mr. Sato.
Right.
Basic geometry and forensic lighting principles dictate that his shadow should be cast forward.
Pointing away from the fireworks.
Exactly, pointing away from the light source in the sky toward the camera.
Right. But the frame-by-frame analysis shows Mr. Sato's shadow pointing toward the fireworks.
Which shouldn't be physically possible.
It is actively defying the primary light source. It's like watching gravity suddenly decide to work sideways.
From a forensic perspective, shadows are incredibly reliable witnesses.
They don't lie.
They do not lie. They are absolute mathematical projections of light intercepting a solid object.
So if a shadow points the wrong way,
If a shadow defies the obvious primary light source, the physical explanation is binary. There must be a secondary hidden light source coming from the opposite direction.
coming from the front.
Yes. And critically, that hidden source must be vastly more intense than the fireworks.
To completely wash out the shadows from the sky.
Precisely.
And the crime scene investigators found the remnants of that secondary light.
They did.
Tucked away on the deck near Sato's position was the burnt-out husk of a highly concentrated magnesium flare.
A magnesium flare. To understand how a single flare outshines a sky full of fireworks, we need to look at the chemistry of magnesium.
Okay, let's get into the chemistry.
Standard pyrotechnics use a complex mix of metal salts. Strontium is used for red, barium for green.
Right, to produce the pretty colors.
Exactly, along with moderate illumination. But magnesium is entirely different. When ignited, it doesn't just burn, it violently oxidizes at thousands of degrees.
It's an intense chemical reaction.
Extremely intense. More importantly, it produces a brilliant, blindingly intense white light that emits heavily in the ultraviolet spectrum.
It's the kind of light that just washes out the entire world.
Completely. And we have to factor in the inverse square law of light physics here.
The inverse square law. Remind us how that works.
This law states that as you double the distance from a light source, its intensity drops to a quarter.
Oh, okay. So distance matters a lot more than brightness, in a way.
Absolutely. The fireworks are massive, yes, but they are hundreds of feet in the air.
So their intensity is greatly diminished by the time the light reaches the ground.
Right. The magnesium flare, however, was on the ground, mere feet from Sato and the crowd.
Wow.
For that flare to overpower the ambient lighting of the fireworks and cast a reverse shadow, it was positioned for maximum localized optical dominance.
Okay, I have to jump in here because this drove me crazy while I was reading the report.
What's the sticking point?
If a blazing, blinding, UV-heavy magnesium flare went off right in front of the VIP section, literally feet away from people, why didn't a single witness report a blinding light on the ground?
Yes.
Every single police interview says the exact same thing. We were looking up at the fireworks.
Which is exactly what the killer relied upon.
But wouldn't you notice a mini-sun igniting at your feet?
Because the human eye and the visual cortex behind it is astonishingly easy to trick when it is overwhelmed.
Really? Even with light that bright?
Yes. Our brains do not process visual information like a video camera. We don't just record a flat image. We prioritize dynamic, expected stimuli.
So it's the ultimate sleight of hand.
Exactly. Misdirection.
The killer used the sky as a massive misdirection. Everyone at a festival expects the bright lights to be up high.
The grand finale is announced.
The sky explodes with color and every single eye in the VIP section tilts upward.
And in that exact microsecond, the killer ignites the magnesium flare on the ground.
And that flare essentially inflicts biochemical trauma on the eyes of the crowd?
Biochemical trauma is an accurate way to describe it. Inside our retinas, we have photoreceptor cells, rods, and cones.
Rods for light, cones for color, right?
Roughly speaking, yes. They rely on a biological pigment called rhodopsin.
Rhodopsin.
When exposed to light, rhodopsin changes shape and triggers an electrical signal to the brain. That's how we see.
Oh, okay.
But when exposed to the massive, intense blast of UV light from a close-range magnesium flare, the rhodopsin in those cells is instantly, comprehensively bleached.
Bleached. You mean it physically stops working?
Exactly. It causes a temporary biochemical failure in the optic nerve. We call it flash blindness.
Flash blindness.
Yes. The intense light creates a massive afterimage that overwrites your current vision.
But the witnesses didn't report flash blindness either. They said they saw the fireworks.
That is the genius of the visual cortex. The witnesses were essentially staring through a massive blind spot in their lower peripheral vision.
So they were blind but didn't know it.
Basically, yes. Because they expected to see the fireworks, and because their brains were desperately trying to make sense of the sudden silence, their visual processing filled in the gaps.
Wait, our brains just make things up.
Constantly. They stitched together a reality that wasn't there, ignoring the blinding flare at their feet to focus on the sky they knew was supposed to be bright.
They are standing in a literal blind spot, but their brains are actively lying to them to maintain the illusion of the festival. That is terrifying.
It is masterful sensory engineering. If we connect the magnesium flare to the ultrasonic emitters, the full architecture of the trap reveals itself.
It's all coming together.
The killer didn't just murder an architect. They constructed a sensory deprivation bubble.
They mathematically controlled the sound to create a vacuum.
And they chemically controlled the light to create a localized blind spot.
They engineered a 10-second gap in reality, a physical space where human sight and sound simply cease to function reliably.
And within that very specific, heavily engineered 10-second window, they had to execute Mr. Sato.
And vanish without anyone witnessing the physical act.
Precisely.
Which brings us to the most baffling part of the entire dossier, the execution itself.
The forensic pathology.
Because honestly, even with the silence, even with the flash blindness, the forensic evidence of how the killer actually killed Sato feels like a locked room mystery written by a madman.
It does. The physical evidence left on the body is the crux of the entire investigation.
It really is.
It is where the killer's methodology transitions from environmental control to intimate violence. Let's look closely at the autopsy and pathology findings.
Cause of death is straightforward enough, a punctured heart.
A precise, single lethal strike to the myocardium.
But here is the massive anomaly that had the medical examiners tearing their hair out. There is absolutely no entry wound on his suit.
None whatsoever.
I mean, he is wearing a pristine, custom-tailored, incredibly expensive silk blend jacket.
A very fine weave.
There is no tear in the fabric, there is no cut, there is no bullet hole.
Not a single broken thread.
The jacket is unblemished, but the heart beneath it is pierced.
It is the classic locked room scenario, but applied biologically to a human body.
And to make it even more bizarre, there is a missing item.
The tie clip.
Right. Mr. Soto was famous for his wardrobe, specifically a signature solid gold tie clip shaped like an origami crane.
It was his trademark piece.
He wore it everywhere. But it is gone from the body.
Removed by the killer.
But the killer didn't just steal it as a trophy. They left a replacement resting perfectly on his chest, right over the fatal wound.
A folded paper crane.
A paper crane that, according to the forensics team, holds a chilling detail of its own.
Yes, the weight.
The crime lab weighed it. The paper crane weighs exactly the same as the missing solid gold tie clip.
Down to the absolute milligram.
They had to use special, dense paper and heavy ink just to get the mass perfectly right.
So as an investigator, let us lay out the facts.
Okay, summarize it for us.
We have a punctured heart, we have an unblemished suit jacket, we have a missing gold clip, and an exact weight paper replacement.
It sounds impossible.
When faced with this, you must apply Sherlock Holmes's maxim. Eliminate the impossible.
Whatever remains, however improbable, must be the truth.
Exactly. You physically cannot drive a blade or a projectile through a tightly woven silk suit without severing the threads and damaging the fabric.
The weapon has to go through the suit to get to the heart.
Therefore, the weapon did not go through the suit.
Which leaves only one horrifying conclusion. The weapon was already inside the suit.
Exactly. The weapon was on his person the entire evening, resting peacefully underneath the jacket.
Oh, man.
And the case file points us directly to the missing tie clip. The prevailing forensic theory is that the tie clip itself was the murder weapon.
Okay, I spent an hour trying to brainstorm this when I first read it.
What were your theories?
I was thinking, did the killer use an ice bullet that melted?
A classic trope, yes.
Or was it some kind of dissolving crystalline poison dart shot up his sleeve? Because how does a blunt, decorative piece of gold jewelry suddenly decide to puncture a human heart?
It doesn't.
Yeah.
And those are good alternative theories. But the lack of water residue rules out ice, and the complete toxicology screen ruled out poison.
Right. His blood was clean.
This leads us directly into the highly specialized field of forensic metallurgy.
Forensic metallurgy, that's a new one for me.
It's fascinating. The theory posited by the experts is that the gold tie clip wasn't made of gold at all.
It was a fake.
It was constructed from a highly advanced, heavily engineered shape memory alloy.
Shape memory alloy. Okay, I've heard of nitinol. That's the stuff they use in medical stents, right?
Yes, exactly.
You crush it up, put it in an artery, and your body heat makes it expand back into a rigid tube.
Yes, nitinol is the most famous commercial example. It's an alloy of nickel and titanium, discovered quite by accident by the Naval Ordnance Laboratory in the 1950s.
Wow, the 50s.
The physics of shape memory alloys are fascinating and deeply complex. At a molecular level, these metals possess two completely distinct crystal structures, or phases, depending on their energy state.
It's like the metal has a split personality.
That is an excellent way to conceptualize it. The lower energy state is called the martensite phase.
Martensite.
In this phase, the metal is relatively soft, easily deformable. You can bend it, twist it, and form it into.
So a harmless-looking, intricate tie clip.
Precisely. You can sculpt it into a little folded crane shape, coat it to look like gold, and Sato puts it on his tie, completely oblivious.
He thinks it's just his normal jewelry.
Yes.
Hmm.
But the metal has a memory of a completely different shape,
Yeah.
a shape that was forged into it at a very high temperature in a lab.
Its second personality.
This is his austenite phase, the higher energy state.
Austenite. Got it.
Usually you trigger the transition from martensite to austenite with thermal energy. Heat.
Like dropping it in hot water.
Right, you drop a bent piece of nitinol wire into hot water, and the thermal energy causes the crystal structure to violently shift.
It reorganizes itself.
The metal snaps back to its original programmed shape with astonishing mechanical force.
Think of a shape memory alloy like a jack-in-the-box. But instead of being held down by a metal latch that you turn with a crank, it's held down by its own temperature.
That's a great visualization.
It's essentially a frozen explosion waiting to happen. But here's the problem with the theory. Mr. Sato didn't suddenly burst into flames on the pier.
No, he did not.
He wasn't hit with boiling water. So what triggered the alloy to change shape while he was just standing there?
This is where the killer's engineering prowess transitions from brilliant to genuinely terrifying.
I'm bracing myself.
While heat is the standard trigger, shape memory alloys can, in highly experimental laboratory-grade settings, be engineered to react to triggers other than thermal energy.
They can be customized.
Yes, they can be manipulated to undergo a stress-induced phase transformation.
Stress-induced.
Specifically, they can react to a sudden, massive influx of mechanical energy in the form of a targeted, highly intense resonant frequency.
Resonant frequency.
We are talking about phonon resonance.
Phonon resonance. Wait, oh my God, the ultrasonic emitters.
Yeah.
The emitters.
The very same emitters hidden in the fireworks launchers that generated the 50-meter dome of silence were likely pulling double duty.
They weren't just creating silence.
No. They were programmed not just to calculate and emit anti-waves to cancel the fireworks, but to simultaneously broadcast a very specific, incredibly high-frequency ultrasonic pulse.
A sonic password.
Exactly. A mechanical sonic password targeted directly at the molecular structure of the fake tie clip.
So let me get this straight. Sato is walking around the festival, shaking hands, sipping champagne,
Having the time of his life.
wearing what he thinks is this luxurious piece of signature jewelry. But in reality, it's a metallic Trojan horse.
Oh, it is a weapon hiding in plain sight.
He is wearing a coiled spring, a lethal, jagged weapon resting right against his chest, just waiting for the right acoustic frequency to snap open.
The mechanics are brutal, silent, and instantaneous.
It's almost too perfect.
Consider the timeline of those 10 seconds. Let's walk through it as an investigator.
Okay, step by step.
The emitters blast the ANC silence and the trigger frequency simultaneously.
Sound disappears, and the trigger is set.
The magnesium flare ignites, flash blinding everyone in the immediate vicinity.
Total sensory wipeout.
In that exact microsecond, the shape memory alloy on his tie absorbs the intense ultrasonic mechanical energy.
The phonon resonance.
Yes. It undergoes a violent, unstoppable phase change, snapping from a decorative crane into a rigid, needle-like spike.
With enough force to penetrate bone and muscle.
Yes. Puncturing his heart from beneath the fabric of the suit.
And because it's attached to his tie, which is tucked under his jacket, there is no entry wound on the outer layer.
Exactly. The jacket is untouched.
That is insane.
And as the 10 seconds of silence conclude, the ultrasonic frequency ceases.
The trigger goes away.
Right. The alloy, deprived of that mechanical energy, either cools or is designed to revert back to its softer martensite phase.
It goes limp again.
The lethal spike retracts or softens, leaving no trace of the weapon's lethal geometry inside the chest cavity.
So it looks like a phantom stabbed him.
The killer, hiding comfortably within the visual blind spot they created, simply steps forward, removes the now soft metallic evidence from the tie, and places the paper crane in its exact spot.
Wow, that paper crane. It really sticks with me. I just can't shake it.
It's the psychological signature of the crime.
The fact that the killer went to the trouble of ensuring it weighed exactly the same as the gold clip, it completely changes the profile of who we are dealing with.
How so?
Well, it implies this deep, almost religious obsession with balance, with equivalent exchange.
Yes. An eye for an eye, but measured to the milligram.
This killer isn't just a cold, calculating engineer or a highly skilled corporate assassin. They are deeply, intensely symbolic.
They were sending a message.
Right. They didn't just want Sato dead to get him out of the way. They wanted to leave a profound message about value, weight, and consequence.
And that observation, The heavy symbolism of the cranes, the exact weight replacement, the theatrical staging of the entire event is the pivot point of the entire investigation.
We're moving from the physical to the psychological.
Exactly. We have spent this time establishing the how. We've used physics, acoustics, and metallurgy to demystify the mechanics of the crime.
We found the wires behind the magic trick.
But all of this staggering physical evidence, the immense effort and risk involved in pulling this off, it points directly to a deeply buried psychological motive.
You don't do all this just for a random mugging.
Absolutely not. As investigators, we must now move from physical forensics to psychological forensics. We have to look at the evidence and ask why.
And incredibly, the killer actually tells us why. Sort of.
The audio confession.
Yes. While sweeping the scene, investigators found a hollowed-out festival mask discarded near the pylons.
A traditional mask, very symbolic in itself.
Yeah, and carefully hidden inside it was a micro SD card. It contained an audio confession.
A direct line to the perpetrator's mindset.
The audio itself is heavily distorted by static intentionally degraded to mask any identifying vocal frequencies, but the transcript of what they said is, it's chilling.
Let's analyze the language used in that transcript. In psychological forensics, the specific words chosen by a perpetrator are just as much a piece of hard evidence as the magnesium residue or the ultrasonic logs.
Okay, let's look at the words. The killer starts the recording by saying, "Logic is a beautiful cage, isn't it?"
A fascinating opening.
Then they go on to state that Seto, despite his reputation, built the city on a foundation of stolen dreams.
A very poetic phrasing.
They explicitly clarify that this wasn't a robbery or a corporate hit. They say, "I didn't want his money, I wanted his voice."
Which ties back directly to the ANC silence.
Right. They claim the fireworks display revealed the blueprints of his lies. And then comes the most haunting part of the confession.
The cranes.
Yes. They state that the thousands of glowing silver cranes scattered on his body are the suicide notes of the people he ruined.
That is an incredibly heavy statement.
And that the explosion was completely silent because, quote, "some truths are too heavy for air to carry."
Let's unpack that opening line first.
Yeah.
Logic is a beautiful cage.
What does that tell you?
That is a direct invitation and a taunt to the forensic investigators.
Us.
To anyone investigating the scene. The killer knows exactly what we are going to do. They know we will painstakingly deconstruct the physics.
They know we'll look for the ultrasonic emitters and the shape memory alloys.
Yes. They built the cage of logic, the ANC arrays, the photochemistry of the flares, the thermodynamics of the metallurgy specifically for us to admire.
Wow.
But they are telling us that they view the logic as entirely secondary to the emotional truth of the act.
Right. It's like they're saying, you can admire the cage, but you need to look at the beast inside.
That's a perfect way to phrase it.
They didn't just want to assassinate a man. They wanted to systematically dismantle his entire legacy.
If we connect this linguistic evidence to the bigger picture of the crime scene, it becomes clear this was never just a murder.
It was an execution disguised as an interactive art installation.
Exactly. Look at the highly specific, deeply poetic vengeance embedded in the method.
The method is the message.
Mr. Sato was a visionary architect. He made his living and his reputation by dealing in grand visual statements.
Massive public infrastructure, skyscrapers.
And loud public applause. So the killer takes his grandest stage, the Starlight Pier, during his most celebrated moment and weaponizes it against him.
Let's talk about the phrase, "I wanted his voice," because that operates on so many levels.
It does.
It's literal because Sato couldn't scream due to the sonic vacuum.
The physical silence.
But it's fundamentally metaphorical, isn't it? Because the forensics team actually took those glowing silver paper cranes back to the lab and analyzed them under blacklight.
And they found the hidden text.
They found names written in invisible ink on the wings. They matched the names to families that Sato's aggressive development company had forcefully evicted.
To clear land for his pristine city projects.
He bulldozed their homes.
Exactly. This is where the psychological profile begins to firmly crystallize.
The motive becomes clear.
The killer engineered the silence, not just for tactical cover, but specifically so, Sato would die in the exact same auditory void he forced upon his victims.
Oh, that is dark.
Sato silenced the protests of those displaced families. He used his wealth and influence to ensure their pleas were never heard by the city.
He drowned them out with his success.
So in return, the killer completely silenced his world. They made his death as voiceless and ignored as the people he ruined.
Okay, as someone trying to put the pieces together, the dichotomy here is just wild to me.
Contrast between the method and the motive.
Yes. The killer used cold, hard, entirely dispassionate physics. They used active noise cancellation algorithms, chemical oxidation rates, and Martensite phase changes.
Very clinical sciences.
These are the most calculated, emotionless tools available to humanity. Yet they meticulously applied them to execute a crime driven by pure, burning, messy human passion.
Deep-seated rage.
It is a highly rational, almost clinical method applied to a highly emotional, vindictive motive.
It suggests a deeply complex perpetrator. Someone who possesses both extreme, perhaps genius-level technical proficiency and profound, crippling, empathetic trauma.
They are a genius, but they are hurting.
Yes. The phrase blueprints of his lies is critical to understanding their worldview.
Why blueprints specifically?
To the public, Sato was a hero, a creator of beauty and progress. But the killer views the city itself as an ongoing crime scene.
Built on a foundation of pain.
They believe the pristine skyline is structurally built on hidden suffering.
So by leaving the names of the evicted families resting on the body, the killer is forcing the entire city to finally read the true blueprints of Sato's success.
They are violently exposing the structural rot hidden beneath the marble facades.
It's a forced reckoning, a way to make the city look at its own sins.
A very public tribunal.
But, as I was reading through the final pages of the file, there is a piece of the puzzle that the recently evicted families alone just don't fully explain.
The timeline doesn't quite fit.
Right. The recent evictions provide a solid motive, sure, but the highly specific methodology, the obsession with origami cranes, the choice of the pier itself, the dark poetry about smoke and silence.
They're very elaborate.
It all feels incredibly theatrical. It feels like it's echoing something older, something deeper in the city's bones.
A historical grievance.
And that brings us to the final and honestly perhaps the most unsettling piece of evidence in the dossier, the urban legend.
It is a fascinating pivot. In modern forensic investigations, we often find that our work intersects with local folklore and urban myths.
Really? You see that often?
Yes, it is a psychological and cultural phenomenon we see far more often than the public might think.
Well, the locals in this city have been telling a specific legend for about 20 years. They call it the White Shadow of the Pier.
A very evocative title.
The story goes that 2 decades ago, a young, brilliant, but unknown origami artist designed a revolutionary, beautiful bridge for the city.
But he didn't get the credit.
No. His design was stolen by a powerful, established architect, who everyone now presumes was a young Mr. Seto building his early career.
Stealing a design to launch his empire.
Cheated out of his masterpiece and entirely ruined, the artist supposedly threw himself into the sea right off the edge of the Starlight Pier.
The pier becomes the geographical origin point of the tragedy, a site of historical trauma.
Right, and the legend dictates that if you stand on that exact pier and light a firework with a dishonest heart, the smoke won't naturally rise into the sky.
It defies physics in the myth.
Instead, it will unnaturally crawl along the ground, coalescing and turning into a flock of silver cranes that will swarm you and steal your breath away.
The silver cranes again.
The locals have whispered for years that the ghost of the artist doesn't want bloody revenge. He just wants his stolen bridge back.
This immediately raises a vital question for the investigation.
Right.
Are we looking at a supernatural event?
Right. Did a ghost do it?
As forensic scientists bound by empirical reality, absolutely not.
Obviously.
But we are looking at a classic psychological profile of how a killer adopts local folklore as their modus operandi.
Their MO.
An MO is never accidental. It serves a specific psychological purpose.
Hmm.
Sometimes it is purely functional. It masks a killer's true identity by providing a theatrical distraction for the police to chase.
Sending them on a wild goose chase after a ghost.
Right. But other times, and I believe this is the case here, it is used to legitimize a grievance by actively tying a personal vendetta to a universally known, culturally accepted myth.
To make it bigger than just one murder.
Exactly. To make it a mythic retribution.
And you cannot deny the connection between the hard, physical evidence we just spent an hour walking through and the beats of the myth.
It's uncanny.
It is a one-to-one recreation. Think about it. The legend says the smoke crawls along the ground and turns into silver cranes.
The visual effect of the myth.
What did the witnesses in the VIP section actually see when that magnesium flare bleached their retinas?
They saw the flare smoke.
They saw thick white smoke from the flare pooling heavily on the ground, and when their vision finally cleared from the flash blindness, Thousands of glowing silver cranes were suddenly scattered everywhere in the dark, covering the body.
The killer didn't just commit a murder. They meticulously, scientifically recreated the exact visual effects of a ghost story.
And consider the specific detail of stealing your breath from the legend.
The silence.
Yes, the absolute silence, the 50-meter vacuum created by the ultrasonic emitters. Witness statements literally described it as feeling like the air was sucked out of the space, leaving them gasping.
It's dark, brilliant, terrifying poetry.
The artist was cheated out of his bridge 20 years ago, so 20 years later, the killer turned the architect's crowning festival, his massive public celebration of his own infrastructure, into a physical monument of his original sin.
In the field of forensics, we frequently find that urban legends are simply the oral histories of unpunished crimes.
The crimes the law couldn't touch.
The community knew, on some subconscious collective level, that Cito's immense success was built on theft and exploitation, even 20 years ago.
But they couldn't prove it in a courtroom.
Exactly. So the story of the tragic origami artist became a cultural coping mechanism for a gross injustice that the legal system ignored or was paid to overlook.
So the million-dollar question for the investigators is, who actually is the killer?
The suspect pool is complex.
Is it the original origami artist who maybe didn't actually die in the sea but survived, went underground, and spent 20 years learning advanced acoustics and metallurgy just to plan this one night?
A long con revenge.
Or is it a child or a descendant of the artist seeking generational revenge?
Inherited trauma.
Or is it one of the recently evicted victims, say, a disgruntled engineer whose home was destroyed, who purposefully weaponized the 20-year-old myth to amplify their own message and strike terror into Cito?
From a behavioral profiling standpoint, any of those hypotheses are viable and require thorough investigation.
It could be any of them.
But the ultimate outcome is the same. The killer synthesized 20 years of public rumor, grief, and unpunished corruption into a singular, undeniable, physically devastating event.
They made the myth real.
They proved, using the rigorous language of science, that Sato's history of stealing designs and destroying lives didn't start with the recent apartment evictions.
It started 2 decades ago with a stolen bridge.
The killer finally closed a 20-year-old cold case by opening a spectacularly public, meticulously engineered new one.
It is genuinely one of the most deeply layered, structurally complex cases I've ever seen. We've gone down some profound, dark rabbit holes today, trying to untangle it all.
It's a lot to process. Let's summarize the forensic journey we've taken a listener on to bring all these threads together.
Right. So we started by stepping right onto the Starlight Pier, surrounded by the conflicting smells of festival sulfur and VIP champagne, looking at what appeared to be an impossible supernatural crime.
The magic trick.
And bit by bit, using the tools of investigation, we turned what looked like magic back into pure physics.
We found the wires.
We unmasked the auditory void, explaining exactly how hidden ultrasonic emitters weaponize sound to create a 50-meter vacuum of silence through destructive interference.
The weaponization of active noise cancellation.
We explained the phenomenon of the reverse shadow, revealing how the photochemistry of a hidden magnesium flare overpowered the sky to inflict flash blindness on a crowd,
Creating a visual blind spot right in front of them.
and we finally solved the locked room mystery of the body itself, exploring the frightening reality of how a shape memory alloy like nitinol, triggered remotely by mechanical sound waves, punctured a human heart without ever tearing a single thread of the victim's pristine suit.
It's a triumph of forensic deduction, really.
But I believe the ultimate enduring takeaway from Case File 141 Redacted isn't just the sheer technological brilliance of the trap.
What do you think it is?
The true perfection of the crime from an investigative standpoint was in how flawlessly the cold technology mirrored the deeply human tragedy.
The poetry of the method.
The killer used the very tools of Sato's own trade-advanced engineering, physics, acoustics, and structural design to completely dismantle him.
They used his own language to condemn him.
The silent firework wasn't just a murder weapon. It was a societal lens. It violently forced an entire city to finally stand in the silence and look at the victims it had been willfully, comfortably ignoring for 20 years.
That is a very powerful summary.
I want to sincerely thank you, the listener, for sticking with us, putting on the metaphorical latex gloves, and walking through this deeply strange, mathematically precise crime scene today.
It's been a fascinating deep dive.
It's a powerful, lingering reminder that every single piece of physical evidence, from a scattered paper crane to the specific angle of a shadow to the molecular structure of a tie clip, tells a story if you only take the time and know how to listen to it.
Indeed. The physical evidence is always the truest, most unbiased voice of the event.
But before we officially close the dossier on Case File 141 and step off the Starlight Pier, there is one last lingering thought I want you to mull over.
A final thought.
Something we touched on earlier, but that really deeply gets under my skin the more I think about it.
Go ahead.
We've spent all this time focusing on how the killer brilliantly used sound waves and ultraviolet light and shifting metal to violently silence the architect.
The grand mechanics of the crime.
But think again about that simple paper crane left behind on his chest.
The exact weight replacement.
The one that weighed exactly, perfectly the same as the solid gold tie clip it replaced. In the cold, hard, unforgiving laws of physics that we've discussed today, mass is always conserved.
An equation must always balance.
Energy goes somewhere. But when we apply that rigid scientific law to human lives, it asks a terrifying, unanswerable question.
What is the true, measurable weight of a stolen dream?
Exactly. If a simple, fragile piece of folded paper carrying the hidden name of a ruined, forgotten family can carry the exact same weight as solid, luxurious gold, maybe the real terror of Case File 141 isn't the complex, high-tech murder itself. Maybe the real terror is the sudden realization that the gleaming, pristine cities we live in, the beautiful, sweeping bridges we drive across every day, and the towering monuments we casually admire might entirely be held up by the unseen, unmeasured weight of the people crushed beneath their foundations. Next time you look up at your own city's beautiful skyline, ask yourself, whose blueprints are you really looking at?